to the Baby Seller channel. I am Hillary and I am a registered nurse, lactation consultant, and mama 4. I'm glad you're here. Babies can be overwhelming and I am here to help you with that. So if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. Leave me some comments below. I create new content based on your questions and your feedback. So drop something below in the comment box and give me some ideas for future things to help make babies less overwhelming. But today we are going to talk about breastfeeding pillows. So recently there was I guess it would be called an article that was published about how unsafe breastfeeding pillows are. And the question is should they even be available on the market to purchase? And so I want to unpack that a little bit and tell you what I think the real problem is. It's not the breastfeeding pillow, but there's another real problem that I want to discuss here at the end of this video. So stay tuned for that information. But first, let's talk about breastfeeding pillows. So there are a ton of breastfeeding pillows on the market. Do I think that they are even necessary? Do you need a breastfeeding pillow? So what I will say to that is, it depends. It truly depends. If you are not a super coordinated person and you have a hard time with getting those good angles, a breastfeeding pillow can be really, really helpful. So I'm going to use my little baby doll here. The most important thing when you are establishing a latch with breastfeeding is to get the angles right and really get the positioning right from the beginning, so that fast forward, you're a couple months down the road and you just kind of put your baby in that general direction of your breast and they latch with no issue. To get to that point, you have to put in the time and practice early on. So when you are breastfeeding, depending on the size of your breast, the size of your baby, those two things play a role in determining if you actually do need a breastfeeding pillow. So when you're breastfeeding, the most important thing is that whatever position your baby is, their head is in alignment with their body. So we don't want them flat on their back with their head turned for feeding. We don't want them feeding in a way where they're curled up into this C position. We don't want their necks flexed when they're feeding. So a breastfeeding pillow can be really helpful in getting that position. Kind of the go-to position that most nurses and lactation consultants help moms with in the hospital are the cross cradle hold, which has your baby across like this, or the football hold, which has your baby like this. So a breastfeeding pillow can be really helpful in supporting those two holds, specifically in those early days postpartum. If you had a C-section, or if you are just not feeling super strong, if your arms are not used to holding a baby up in position, if you have got a 9-pound baby and they are just so heavy, a pillow can be really helpful. So that is kind of why breastfeeding pillows were developed. They were really developed to help moms. As with all things on the market, you need to read the labels, and you don't want to use things for purposes other than what they're made for. So a breastfeeding pillow is not to be used as a newborn lounger. It's not to be used for you to set your baby on to sleep. It's not to be used to prop your baby up for bottle feeds. It is really, really to be used to support the position for latching. So my all-time favorite breastfeeding pillow is one that gets your baby up high enough. I'm gonna pull out, this is the My Breast Friend. This is not a sponsored post at all. This is just a pillow that I personally love and use in my office. So I'm gonna put it around myself here. The biggest thing I like about this pillow specifically is that it gets the baby up high enough. So in this position, my baby is at chest height, and the pillow really helps support that positioning. And you can see here, they are at chest height. So this is a great pillow. Another thing I really like about this pillow is that it is flat. So if you can see, there's little humps here that are in the perfect position for my arm and for the baby's head. So this little hill right here actually does help support me with positioning. But what I don't like about some breastfeeding pillows is that this part is not flat. This part actually has the baby curving down in on your body. So look for a pillow that has a nice flat shelf to really support the position. And then also I would say that it's actually a safer position. Some of those other pillows on the market, if they have that little slope down, not only does it make it more difficult to get a good latch and good positioning, but it also is a little bit riskier position, because if you get sleepy and you're not paying attention, or just if you fall asleep, if your baby can kind of fall down into that hole and end up in a position where their head is kind of like this, and that can cut off the airway for your baby. So let's talk about that for a second. So newborns, babies, through the first couple months, they do not have a lot of core strength, and they have a hard time protecting their own airway. So you'll see, like with burping, I'll do another video on that, but with burping, you really, when you're burping, whatever position you're burping in, you want to think about protecting their airway. So whether you're leaning them forward here, you're protecting their airway. If they're up here on your shoulder, you have them up high enough that you're protecting their airway. It's the same thing with feeding. Whatever position you're feeding them in, you want to make sure that you're protecting their airway. So with a breastfeeding pillow that kind of falls down on the inside, if we fall asleep, or if we're not really positioning correctly, we're not paying attention, there is a risk that they can fall down on the inside of that pillow and get in a position that their head is kind of in this curved in mode, and that is a little bit risky position to be in. So if you're looking for a breastfeeding pillow, highly recommend one that has that flat surface so you don't find yourself in that situation. With breastfeeding, another quick tip I want to give you is that, if you are totally exhausted and sleepy, set an alarm on your phone, on your watch, whatever you're using, set an alarm. I always did that in the newborn days with all of my kids. So even if I didn't feel like I was super, super sleepy, I would set a 15-minute alarm, and it almost never went off. But I knew that if I did happen to fall asleep, the alarm was going to go off to wake me up. So if you are just feeling so exhausted that you are worried that you're going to fall asleep, I highly recommend setting an alarm on your phone. One other thing to say about that, there's always a discussion on what's the safest place to breastfeed. Should you get out of your bed and go to the couch? Should you sit up in your baby's room and nurse? What position in the middle of the night is it really the safest to breastfeed in? And I would say that a position that really considers keeping your baby's airway protected would be the best position. So if you are using a pillow like the My Breast Friend, and you're sitting in the nursery in a chair in your baby's room, and you have your baby positioned high at your chest, they're not in a position where their head is going to go like this. You've got your hands on them. They're not going to move that much when they're a newborn and in those first 6 weeks, that might be a safer position than you going to sit on the couch with one of those other breastfeeding pillows that kind of slopes them in, or even having them kind of curled up on your chest. It's all about the airway and keeping the airway open and keeping the face unobstructed. But really, this leads me to my next point. I think the bigger problem here is that our society and breastfeeding and lactation consultants in general are really pushing this breastfeeding at all costs, and breast is best and everyone should breastfeed. And, if you are not prioritizing breastfeed, that maybe you're not making the best decision for your baby. People have made comments like that on my Instagram account over at Baby Settler. I really had a hard time with baby number 4, and I shared about it. You can go check it out on my highlight reel. And I've had lots of people comment on that I'm a selfish mother, and that not giving my baby, not doing everything I could to breastfeed, I'm not making the best decision for my baby. I am not bothered by that, because I know that I made the best decision for my baby. But it is easy to get sucked into that train of thought. And I think that honestly is a huge, huge issue that needs to really be tackled head on. Breastfeeding is obviously, we know that breast milk is excellent for our babies, but there is a whole nother piece of that. And as a lactation consultant, we need to be helping moms figure out how to get sleep and breastfeed. So the good thing is that breastfeeding is not all or nothing. You can breastfeed and get sleep. I know specifically when I'm working with moms in our private practice here with Baby Settler that we make it a point to prioritize some sleep for mom. I think it's super helpful if moms can get at least a 4-hour cycle of sleep in those early postpartum days, just so that they can get into one REM cycle, and they typically feel so much better. So speaking specifically to the breastfeeding pillow, while yes, there are breastfeeding pillows that are probably safer than others, and yes, we acknowledge that that there may be an issue here in how they are marketed. Let's bring it back to sleep and just consider that these moms are so exhausted that we have got to set you up to feel empowered and confident to be able to prioritize sleep for yourself and your baby and also meet your breastfeeding goals. So I just want to plant that seed and have you consider that. Work with a lactation consultant. You know, I've got tons of other videos here that talk about milk supply and how to protect your milk supply, and then also get some sleep. But what I want to leave you with today is that you absolutely can get sleep and still have a great milk supply. You just have to understand how to manage lactation and how milk supply works, and that it's all about supply and demand, but really understand what that means. And then there's a lot more that goes into it. You know, if you are up all hours at night doing 45 plus minute breastfeeding sessions and your baby still seems hungry after they're done feeding, and you're just in this cycle of marathon breastfeeding sessions, it does not have to be that way. So efficient, effective feeds lead to more sleep. And if you feel like your baby is not an efficient, effective feeder, then I highly recommend you work with a lactation consultant near you. If you worked with one that you didn't like, or you felt like they didn't know what they were talking about, or you didn't get the answers that you were looking for, then definitely reach out to our team, or find someone else in your area, because there are many different personalities and we all have different ways of educating and supporting you. But I'm telling you that you absolutely have options. Breastfeeding is not all or nothing. And don't let anyone tell you that sleep is not important, because it absolutely is important. So I hope that was helpful today. Feel free to leave some comments below, questions. Check out the notes, details below. So I'm going to send you to some freebies that we have, and that will hopefully support you on your way. But it was good to see you here, and I will see you next time, and hopefully help you feel less overwhelmed by your baby, because really babies are simple. You just have to understand the connection between feeding and sleep, and how that really affects all things in life, relationships, motherhood, and all those things. So I hope you have a good rest of your day.